Hello, and how is everybody doing here? You know how we start off Quincy Carrier Live. We start off to make sure that my audio is all right because we done had enough problems with that all good. So if we can, from the chat, get a thumbs up from those in the chat to make sure that I am good from an audio perspective. I'm checking things here on my end. I should be fine here. As we continue. All right. Everybody hears, everybody sees me. But fun times here to be a Browns fan. An interesting series of things working in place in the background. Not a ton of actual news, but a ton of things that are happening in the background of that picture that might prove to be important sooner or later. One of those things is what's going on with Tennessee in the number one overall pick. That affects the Cleveland Browns simply because we have the number 2 overall pick. Another thing is, hey, are the Browns going to bring in another wide receiver? They've been very quiet on the veteran wide receiver market. We know that this is a team that can use a veteran wide receiver because right now their room is not Brandon Aiyuk. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and then a bevy of day 3 rookies or second round guys who haven't really made of impact. And even Cedric Tillman only had a couple of games of impact. So you're talking about one bona fide NFL wide receiver in that group. And that's Jerry Jeudy, who just recently turned into that. So they need to get a wide receiver. We have the question marks, right? What's going on here signing of Tevin Jenkins, who's a good player, going to start somewhere on that offensive line for the Cleveland Browns this upcoming year. The question is, where and why will Tevin Jenkins be starting? Lot of parts flying around, not really settled as we enter April, draft month. And some of these pieces will be settled soon. Some of these pieces might have to wait till after the draft to be settled. Let's talk about the Kirk Cousins piece of this. It's looking more and more that if you want Kirk Cousins, you're going to have to wait till after the draft. Kirk Cousins desperately does not want to end up in a situation like he ended up in with Atlanta. He does not want to be sidelined for a rookie. And to be fair to Kirk Cousins, his agents successfully negotiated a no-trade clause in his deal with the Atlanta Falcons, and he is using that no-trade clause appropriately because what he wants to do is avoid being sent to a team who drafted a quarterback in the first round without him knowing that that's going to happen, right? He doesn't want to be blindsided. Now, ultimately, his options might be so narrow that he has to go somewhere that drafted a quarterback in the first round. But as much as he can avoid it, he's going to try to. So he's using his no-trade clause to say, hey, don't trade me until after the draft. And then after the draft, if you want to trade me, I'll waive my no-trade clause to a team that did not take a quarterback in the first round. Or at least if I am going to waive my no-trade clause to a team that drafted a quarterback, I at least know what's going on there. So Kirk Cousins, I feel like 100% not going to be traded until April, right? That's not going to happen until after the draft or during the draft or after the first round. He wants assurance that he's not going to be done like he was done last year. Okay. Now, what's the right price for Atlanta and Kirk Cousins? That's a bigger question, right? I think it's more about how much money Atlanta is willing to eat than the actual draft pick compensation that will be involved in this trade. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to go for anything more than maybe a 6th-round pick next year, right? And again, if you're trading Kirk Cousins after the draft, you know what this means. He's not going to take up any of your assets this year for the draft. He's going to take up assets next year. So you're talking about a 6th next year, which would be equivalent to a 7th this year before the draft. So the draft pick compensation, I don't anticipate that to be a huge hang-up for either the Cleveland Browns or the Atlanta Falcons. Where I think the negotiation is the money. Kirk Cousins has a lot of money left on that deal. And I think the way that the Browns want it is to take as little as that money as possible, right? If they can take as little of that money as possible, they will be fine with trading for Kirk Cousins. The benefit of Kirk is that he'd be cheap, right? And I don't think it makes sense for the Cleveland Browns to get Kirk Cousins if he's not going to be cheap. Now, I have no idea how expensive Russell Wilson's going to be. People are telling me that it's about a $30 million contract for Russell Wilson. Good luck. Good luck getting that money, Russ. I don't know anybody who's going to pay Russ $30 million to play. I mean, that's what they paid Sam Darnold, right? Russ for $30 million, we'll see if that actually happens, right? But if you can get Kirk's number down to $10 million, I think the Browns will want to do it. The counter to that is, well, what money is Russ willing to take? Would you take Russ over Kirk Cousins? Which one do you prefer? I do feel like there is something underrated about going after Russell Wilson, which is he's demonstrated over the last 2 years that he could stay healthier than Kirk Cousins. And he's won more games over the last 2 years than Kirk Cousins. Now, again, wins aren't a quarterback stat, but he's been able to at least play at a level where he doesn't get in the way. He stayed healthy. His body seems to be holding up a little bit better. The one thing about Kirk, right, had that season-ending injury with the Minnesota Vikings in 2023. In 2024, he claims that he got injured in a game that greatly affected the rest of his season. Now, the injury he's talking about is a soft tissue injury that was so small that it wasn't even on the injury report for most of the year. He's saying that injury threw him off. That's why he played so bad at the end of the season. My worry with Kirk is he at that age where, if he's completely healthy, he's going to look like Kirk Cousins. But, boy, if he gets one or two nicks in the wrong area, it's going to start looking real funky again. That's the worry you have with older quarterbacks, right? Older quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, like Russell Wilson, like Kirk Cousins will be capable of playing well. Just like Joe Flacco at 37 was capable of playing well. There's no question about that, right? Kirk Cousins, if you sign Kirk Cousins or you trade for Kirk Cousins, you play him 17 games, he's going to at least give you 5-6 high-quality starts. No doubt in my mind. If you get Russell Wilson, he's going to at least give you 5 quality starts. No doubt in my mind. If you signed Aaron Rodgers, I think you probably get about 7 or 8 quality starts out of Aaron Rodgers. No doubt in my mind. But what do those other starts start to look like, right? For example, that shoulder injury Kirk had, whether he had it or not, it's up to debate, but that shoulder injury that Kirk had in Atlanta, that was a minor injury, but it was enough to throw him off according to Kirk Cousins. Here's the difference between a quarterback at 37 and a quarterback at 27. 27-year-old Kirk Cousins has that nick on his shoulder. Doesn't matter. He plays well. It's not a big deal, right? But what happens as you get older? It's not that you get injured more, even though that certainly does happen. But the small injuries that you used to be able to shake off, right? When I was 21, I woke up and my back hurt. I do a couple stretches, pop like that, bam, I'm good. My back's fine. Now, when I'm closer to 30, about to be 30 in about a month or two, I stretch too hard, I might hurt myself. Right? The body gets fragile over age. The body starts to get more sensitive to stuff that it used to be callous about 10 years ago. My thing with Kirk is he at that point to where anything that happens to his body is going to make him play drastically different, where we get 5 quality starts out of Kirk Cousins, but maybe we get 8 starts that look god-awful. It's something to think about. With Russ, I feel like his body's held up a little bit better. Now, athletically, he hasn't held up well at all. But from an injury standpoint, Russ's body is held up pretty strong. But he missed a couple of weeks to start last season. He could have played as early as week 4. Somebody said, wait until I'm 65. I'm telling you, I understand this. I understand. I've experienced enough of aging to understand that by the time I get 65, I don't even want to know what's going to hurt me. I can still go to the gym and stretch a little bit without getting hurt, right? I got to do like the whole 2-hour stretch routine. Twice my age, Q. Sometimes it hurts just looking the other way. Yeah, man. Like, I'm not at the age where I'm gonna get hurt driving my car, right? Like, but some people are at that age. But all jokes aside, that's a real concern with Kirk Cousins at age 37. Is that small stuff going to build up for him over the year? No, it's not going to be some kind of giant injury that's going to show up on the injury report. It's not going to be anything that stops him from playing. But that buildup of injuries after trying to play for so long, it might land up into something. Something to think about with Russ, especially if with Kirk, especially if he's planning on making this difficult. You know, another question to ask yourself: if you're in the draft and we're at pick 22 and Shedeur Sanders has fallen to pick 22, do you say to yourself, nah, I'm not going to trade up for Shedeur Sanders because I still want to be able to trade for Kirk Cousins? I'm not the biggest fan of Shedeur, but I would find that hard to not do, right? To not trade up for Shedeur at that point, just to protect a trade, a hypothetical trade with Kirk Cousins. A 37-year-old Kirk Cousins. There's a lot to think about here, right? With Kirk wanting to wait until after the draft. On one hand, this is a smart move for Kirk Cousins because it guarantees that he won't go to a situation like he had in Atlanta last year. On the other hand, there's a chance where he forces enough teams to make a decision. Somebody said, what about Deion saying New York news coming out today? He said, we're hoping for New York. And I think what Deion is saying there is very simple. We could put that comment on screen, Ian. But I think if what Deion is saying there is very simple. He's saying, we're hoping New York takes Shedeur. Just like everybody else is hoping that they go early as possible. And I think that means to them, they feel like New York is the earliest place that's going to take them. Number 1 seems pretty locked up. They're going Cam Ward. Number 2, the Browns don't seem to be that interested in quarterback. Now we're moving to 3. New York is the team that looks like they might take a quarterback. Signing Jameis Winston doesn't really take you out of drafting one. I think that's what he's saying is, hey, we think our earliest landing spot is New York. A lot of people think their earliest landing spot is somewhere before they actually get taken, though. So I don't think that means that New York is dead set on taking him. I think they see it as an option, but I think that depends on what the board looks like. Maybe New York says to themselves, why would we pass on Genty? Another thing to think about is if the Giants' goal is to get better quicker, drafting a quarterback is not the way to do that. Drafting a Sean Genty, that's the way you get better quicker, right? You get a running back that you can build the offense around, you'll get better quicker. So maybe they go somewhere in that direction. I think the Giants are going to do some wild stuff in this draft. I'm not really sure if we can pinpoint exactly what the Giants are going to do. But yeah, that's my whole take on the Deion saying New York thing. I think we should have learned by this point in the pre-draft process too, to take everything that comes out of the Sanders or Ward camps at this point with a grain of salt, right? At the East-West Shrine game, people were convinced that he's going to go in the top 5. Now people are talking about we don't know where Shedeur is going to go. It's all smoke until somebody turns in that card. But anyways, that's the quarterback picture. The quarterback picture is a bit weird right now, and I don't think answers are forthcoming. Let's talk about the wide receiver picture, because we talked about that, right? The Browns have other needs. One of those needs are wide receiver. Now, Andrew Berry is famous for his wide receiver trades, right? He went after Elijah Moore. He went after Amari Cooper. He went after Jerry Jeudy. Now, Cooper and Jerry Jeudy, you can point to as big successes. The Elijah Moore one, not really, right? But is there a possibility that Andrew and the Cleveland Browns are cooking up a trade for Brandon Aiyuk? I think there is. Can we get a Rock's comment put on the screen, please? Says, so what if they offered Teller and who else does that on there? Teller and Strom, the running back? Because we are going to have to draft a running back or two. Are you talking about Jerome Ford? I think the Browns could have offered Wyatt Teller. I don't know if they would have feel the need to offer a running back. I don't know why San Francisco would want to trade for a running back. They just traded their running back. They just traded their running back to Minnesota, I think, this week. So I don't think they're in the market for a running back. I think they're pretty fine with drafting one. So, no, I don't think that's going to be what they do. But they could trade a draft pick and Wyatt Teller for Brandon Aiyuk. I think a lot of people are circling around Wyatt Teller because of the Tevin Jenkins signing. I think it's worth noting that Tevin Jenkins was supposed to be a left tackle coming out the league, right? So he might just be here to play tackle. That might not be the threat to Wyatt Teller that a lot of people are perceiving it to be. We'll see what happens as the process goes on. But Brandon Aiyuk to Cleveland. It makes sense on Cleveland's part. They seem to think and feel very strongly about Brandon Aiyuk being a fit in the Cleveland Brown offense. And look, he fits the description of every single wide receiver the Browns have traded for. Good route runner, right? He's the type of wide receiver that film guys love, can block, under 6'2". That is the description of every wide receiver the Browns have traded for, right? Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper all fit that same description. That is clearly the prototype of wide receiver that the Browns love, right? The Browns have an affinity for that style of wide receiver for their offense. And to be fair to them, that seems to be one of those formulas that hits more often than it doesn't when it comes to what they want and why. Whenever the Browns try to go outside that formula for wide receiver, we get mixed results. But whenever they stay in that formula for wide receiver, we usually get pretty good results there in the Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski era. So that seems to be what they have landed on that they like. Brandon Aiyuk certainly fits the description. Another thing that fits the description is we heard about Elijah Moore for a couple of years before they actually pulled the trigger and trade for him. Same thing with Jerry Jeudy. Same is true with Brandon Aiyuk. This smells like one of them Andrew Berry trades. Now, does that guarantee that's going to happen? No, because the 49ers have been flighty about trading Brandon Aiyuk. And it's not a situation where they absolutely have to trade him right now. It's just they have cold feet about the contract. The ACL tear, the way that they had to get him to sign it, they feel like maybe that bridge is broken. Maybe they can't mend it. Maybe they should just trade him now. The question in return, if you're the Cleveland Browns, is, hey, if they're giving you Brandon Aiyuk on a discount to what they were willing to give you him last year when he needed a new contract, do they know something we don't? Or is it just that the relationship between the player and the team has failed at this point? Which is certainly a possibility. Also, look, if you look at what San Francisco's been doing, they're kind of doing a soft reset right now, right? They got rid of Deebo Samuel earlier in the offseason. It feels like a soft reset in San Francisco, and maybe trading Brandon Aiyuk and just clearing the decks for when they have to give Brock Purdy an extension is part of it. The only counterpoint I can really think of immediately to that argument is that we just saw what Brock Purdy looks like when he does not have Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel and a consistently healthy George Kittle. And it's not great. And George Kittle's not at that point of his career where he's the same impact player he's always been. So there's a big question on, like, if San Francisco really will be willing to trade Aiyuk. I can see the reasoning for doing it. And for as much smoke that's out there, right? And there's a significant amount of smoke. Josina Anderson is tweeting cryptically about this trade. There's enough there to suggest that these two teams are actively talking. Whether a deal is imminent, I don't think that's the case. But these two teams are discussing the possibility, I would think, based on everything that's out there, with Brandon Aiyuk becoming a Cleveland Brown. How would Brandon Aiyuk feel about this? I don't know. You know, he signed a contract, so he's got to play. And look, if you're the Browns and you're staring in the face of not having a quarterback over the next couple of years, or not having a quarterback this year at least, you want to build a team that can win without a quarterback. It's been done before, but you want to build a team that can win without a quarterback. I know people sell you that there's only one way to win, and that way to win is with the quarterback, but teams have found ways to win without a quarterback. How do you do it? You get good wide receivers that can help a quarterback in the passing game. You get a great running game built. They've been investing heavily in the offensive line. So they draft a couple of running backs. Fingers crossed, bring back Nick Chubb. I think you should be fine there. And then what else do you have? A great defense, right? You get Abdul Carter, number 2 overall. You build a great defense. You have a strong offense supporting cast, and you can build a team that can win without having to need top-level quarterback play. I mean, we saw Pittsburgh do it ever since Ben retired. Still haven't gone over 500. They haven't had a franchise quarterback since then. Not saying that's how you live for the rest of your days, right? But if we're talking about if the Browns can build a winner for a season or two without a franchise quarterback, that's been done. Hell, the Browns won 11 games both times without franchise quarterbacks. It's been done before. It's been done here. Right? I don't know why people act like it's such a foreign concept, like it can't be done before, like it hasn't been done and hasn't been done specifically here. But if you want that consistency, eventually you're going to have to get a quarterback, right? But for now, if you want to build a winner, you can build a winner or build around it so that when you do draft a quarterback, you got a veteran wide receiver he could throw to an Aiyuk and Jerry Jeudy. You got an offensive line that can support that quarterback. You have a run game that can support that quarterback. And you have a defense that can get that quarterback back onto the field to make big plays. It's not really a foreign concept. It's not a crazy one, right? Build the nest, right? If you want to lay eggs, you got to build a nest first. If you want to build a house, you got to get the foundation. Everybody wants to put the angel on top of the Christmas tree without putting the tree together, right? Everybody wants the icing on the cupcake, don't want to bake the cupcake. I got a million of these. We can go on forever. Right. But everybody wants that finishing piece without actually doing the work to make sure that finishing piece stands out. Right. We want to park a Bugatti in front of a trailer park. It's not how that works. Got to build the house. Then you get the Bugatti. Right. Think about the quarterback is getting a super nice car. It's about the last thing you get if you actually getting money for real. Right. You get the house, you get the security, you get some money into your savings, you invest in your IRAs, your Roth IRAs, all of that stuff, and then you get the damn car, right? When you do all of that, you pay your taxes, all that, and then you look over, okay, I got a couple grand. I'm gonna get the damn car, right? That's when you get the damn car. Right now, we trying to spend money to get a Ferrari. We ain't got nowhere to park it. And hell, we ain't even got Ferraris on the lot. We out here about to pay Ferrari prices for a Toyota Yaris. Tell me if that makes any sense. Doesn't make sense to me, right? You know, we out here paying two-door super coupe prices for a 4-door sedan. Don't make very much sense to me. Maybe it's just me. But the Brandon Aiyuk trade, all these rumors that I'm hearing about a potential Brandon Aiyuk trade has my mind spinning. Because, man, how would a trade like that change the Browns draft? Another thing I want to assume. Let's assume that we have a tentative deal in place for this mock draft. And that tentative deal is this. If we do not draft a quarterback in the first round or at 33, we will be able to trade for Kirk Cousins. He will waive his no-trade clause so he can play for the Cleveland Browns. So those are the two unique conditions for the mock draft that we're about to go through today. Kirk Cousins is there if you don't take a quarterback with in the first round or at 33. He is specified, I don't want you to take a quarterback at 33. Okay, cool. Also, we've traded for Brandon Aiyuk. How do those two things change the very fabric of the Cleveland Browns draft? Well, we're going to find out today. We're going to do a 7-round mock, and we're going to mock with these things in mind. All right, so let's jump here. Hold on. Let me get something set up here. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So this is the scenario. This is how we'll be going through this mock draft. Let's get to it. All right. So we're not going to trade for the number 1 overall pick. We're going to start this draft here. They take Cam Ward as expected. We're sitting here at number 2. Now, I do not anticipate a strong trade back market. I have been saying this for a long time. I don't think the Browns are going to be in a trade back market. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. How does this conversation change if you have Brandon Aiyuk on the roster? I think it changes significantly because now, if you're looking at Travis Hunter, the need for a wide receiver, not very strong. The need for a defensive back was never strong to begin with. So Travis doesn't really fulfill any of the current holes on the roster. Could you upgrade from cornerback 2? Yes. Martin Emerson didn't have a strong year last year, but I doubt 1 year is going to be enough for the Browns to, set sail to him when that's a player they have tagged as a potential extension-worthy guy. So I don't think they're just going to bail on him just to bail. You don't see Greg Newsome as a solution to that either. So, but with Greg Newsome, you feel like you got a slot in Cam Mitchell that can replace him. If you get Brandon Aiyuk, then all of a sudden Travis Hunter makes less sense at 2. And you know what makes a lot of sense at 2 now? Abdul Carter. Now, I've been pointing this direction for a long time. I'm happy to see more people hop on board to the Abdul Carter bandwagon. I am glad to welcome people to the Abdul Carter train at 2. Look, it's not a guarantee that Abdul Carter is going to be what his draft, his pre-draft says he could be, right? There's a possibility that Abdul Carter might not work out in the NFL. But I do think it's likely that he ends up being a productive player. The reason it being incredible bend, unreal bend, right? He has that Myles Garrett rubber band ability to run, Von Millery rubber band ability as well, to run with his knees hitting his chest, right? He can run under any tackle. He's quick. So even though he's not big, he can bend underneath bigger tackles and he can get underneath tackles. And even with the size, he converts speed to power very well. He doesn't ever get taken off his tracks by bigger tackles, right? Where his lack of size is going to hurt him is in the run game. But I do think he is aware enough and an attentive enough defensive end to where he will get much better with that. And don't get so caught up in a traditional vision with Abdul Carter, right? I know that's where people get locked up into is they think of Abdul Carter, they think of having Myles Garrett, and their mind gets stuck into, we have to put this guy at, the 4-eye opposite of Myles, right? The traditional way of doing things. But we're not even that traditional with somebody like Myles Garrett. With Myles Garrett, we'll move Myles to 9 wide 9, my bad. We'll move Myles to wide 9, to the 5, to the 4, to the 4-eye, right? We'll move Myles and have him play as a mug, right, in nickel, so he'll be in the A-gap sometimes. Same thing will be true with Abdul Carter. You're going to move Abdul Carter around the defensive line. Sometimes he's going to be opposite of Myles Garrett, bookend, right, traditional. Sometimes he's going to be right next to Myles Garrett on his outside shoulder to give that tackle and that chip situation hell, right? Sometimes both Myles and Abdul Carter are both going to be in the A-gap mugging out of nickel, and then you'll have like Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire manning down the traditional 4 spots on the defensive line. Don't get too caught up in just putting a player in one place on the defensive line. This is not Madden. This is real football. In real football, you can move these guys wherever you want. 2 queens on the chessboard on the defensive line. 2 players, potentially, where the center has to figure out where they are in order to set the protection. And when you got 2 queens on the chessboard, you can break any coverage that you have for those 2. That's why Abdul Carter here is the pick, especially in this scenario where we have Brandon Aiyuk on the roster. Is he going to be a 100% guaranteed home run hit? No. Myles Garrett wasn't even that, right? There were concerns about Myles when you took him number 1 overall at Texas A&M. But is Abdul Carter, would he go number 2 in a lot of other drafts? Absolutely. So you take Abdul Carter there, and you're pretty happy with that. All right. Now we're in the second round. Now this is where things get interesting because Luther Burden is there. Now, in most situations, I'm looking at that and I'm saying I'm taking Luther Burden. Omarion Hampton is there. Most situations, I'm looking at that and I'm taking Omarion Hampton, right? Darius Alexander is there. Demetrius King. Josh Connerly is there. That is what the selections look like. But I know with these guys being on the board, Luther Burden being on the board, there's going to be a lot of energy for a trade back. The Raiders want to trade up. The Colts want to trade up. I got Brandon Aiyuk. Do I really got a use for Luther Burden? No. But if somebody doesn't trade up, I'm probably just going to take Luther. Right? But since there's energy for a trade up, 37, that's not that far of a move back. We'll see what we can get out this situation. So the Raiders want to trade. What are they willing to give up? They're not willing to give up 68, but they are willing to give up 108. Okay. Can I get them to move up? Let me move up from 94 to 67 or 68 as a part of this deal. They're not really hot about that. Okay, I can understand. I can understand that. We could just do this and then maybe, where do I have a gap? I want 143 too. Let's get 143. All right, so this would be fine for me. I get to clear that gap from 94 to 104 to 179. And I pick up 2 extra picks for moving back 4 spots. And I probably still have a really good chance of getting somebody I really like at 37 still. So we're going to make this trade and resume the draft. Luther Burton went right in front of us. They wanted Omarion Hampton. I like Omarion. I don't see him as a great fit for the Cleveland Browns, but I like Omarion. Now we're sitting at 37. And let's see who's on the board, right? Quarterback-wise, Jalen Milroe's still there. Will Howard's still there. Wide receiver, Aiyuk Ayamaner is there. Again, the need for a wide receiver is a little bit lessened because you got 2 under long-term contracts now. And then you still got to develop Cedric Tillman. Tight end makes some sense here, right? David Njoku's contract is coming up. Elijah Arroyo, I think it's a bit old for the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, redshirt junior, so not as old as I thought, 22 years old. The only issue with Elijah Arroyo, I really like his tape from this year. The only issue with Elijah is injury. He got injured a ton. 5 games played in 2023, 4 games played in 2022. So that's the big concern there with Arroyo, right? With somebody like Mason Taylor, again, super young, true junior, played a good amount of games, but was never really a main receiving threat as a college player, right? 500, 348, 414 yards. Has all the tools to become a strong receiving threat, but has not been that in college football. Again, super young, true junior. So you're hoping that this is a let him blossom situation. Terrence Ferguson is pretty athletic. He's cool, right? He's going to be a good enough receiving tight end. I think he's somebody who's going to get you 300, 400 yards, but I don't think he's somebody you want to spend a second round pick on, right? Harold Fannin Jr., Gunnar Helm, same range, where I wouldn't want to spend a second round pick on. With Harold, it's the size that concerns me. He's a little small for a tight end, especially a tight end too. Running back wise, Caleb Johnson is there. Quishon Junkins is there. Travion Henderson is there. All of those guys I would feel fine taking here. Offensive tackle. You got Donovan Jackson here, who I would be fine with taking. Cornerback, Trey Amos. I know a lot of people like him. Siobhan Revel. Those would be fine selections there too. Safety, Xavier Watts is there. Now, I think he had a bad 40 time. But really good player at Notre Dame. I don't know how seriously I would take that 40 time. This is the part with him that's going to be an issue, right? 23.3. The Browns usually don't draft players that old, right? I think if they go safety, how old is Sebastian? Sebastian's 24, so that's off the Browns board. I think Kevin Winston probably makes the most sense for the Browns. Got injured this year, super young, though. Super young, super athletic, would have been a first-round pick if he hadn't gotten injured here. So maybe that's the pick that you go with here. You want to fill safety. You've already spent a significant amount of resources on the offensive line. You feel like you can answer running back later. You've already drafted an edge, interior guys. Darius Alexander would make some sense. How old is he? It's a true senior. 6'4", really good run defender. Has a 12.9 pass rush win rate. I think for me, if I'm trying to think about this in 2 ways, right, with this scenario, it's hard to pass up Darius Alexander here because that would be Darius and Aiyuk would be my best players available. Darius does fulfill, I think, a very specific role here. He's 6'4", 310, which kind of is the size you're looking for if you want to replace what Dalvin Tomlinson did for your defense. How big's Tyleek? Tyleek's 6'3", 320. Maybe Tyleek makes sense here. But he's more of a pass. Oh, no, he's a run defender, I guess. Yeah, he's a run defender. So maybe you go Tyleek here, right? I think it's a bit early to go safety. But I do think I'm going to want to go quarterback at 67 if Milroe or Howard are there. So I think I'm going to go with the best player available here. Who's on our defensive interior, though? This is why I need Jack Duffin. Let me look up the defensive interior. I think we got too many guys on the interior right now. I don't think there's enough bodies there because we're already going to have to. Yeah, Alex Wright's going to probably be on the block here. And then defensive interior, like maybe you keep Juwan Briggs. Maybe you keep Shelby Harris. But it's going to be a 4-man rotation, right? So you're definitely keeping Mike Hall. Somebody said our offense sucks. I just don't know how much drafting another wide receiver here would help that problem this year. And running back, I could go Caleb Johnson and I wouldn't regret it, or at least I don't think I would regret it. But let's go defense. Let's go need here. It's such a reach to go Kevin Winston here, though. So we're going to build a really strong defense. We're going to focus on the strength here because that's what it makes sense to do. We're going to take Darius. All right, so we're at pick 67. And Brown's Twitter is furious at Andrew Berry because he took 2 defensive players in the draft. 2 really good defensive players, by the way, but 2 defensive players. We can go running back here. Giddens would be a good pick. Quarterback-wise, Milroe is available. So is Will Howard. Wide receiver, Trey Harris is there. I know a lot of people like Trey. 6'3", 210. Gray versus Man is a 95. Contested catch is pretty good. The drop rate is a little below average, but it's not suspicious, right? Like somebody on here, who was it? It's not Savion, is it? There's a big wide receiver here. Yeah, it's Savion, who's got the most suspicious drop rate I've ever seen in my life, 11.8, which I'm like, I'm good on that. But yeah, Trey Harris would make some sense here. But again, you've already invested a lot at wide receiver. Running back wise, you don't see anything that would stop you from going quarterback. So right now, I'm probably going quarterback. Unless something deters me. Right. Remember, Kirk don't want to come here if you got a quarterback in the early second or whatever. But round 3, pick 3, I think he can live, or he's going to have to learn how to live. It's between Milroe and Will Howard. I love Will Howard's tape, man. Like, this is the big dilemma for me here. I love Will Howard's tape. I think Jalen Milroe's tape, at times, you like it. Other times, you want to burn it up, right? Like, he gives you that level of variance. It's just, if both of them are there, I just don't think you can ignore the upside that Jalen Milroe has for a second or third round pick, potentially. He has the same upside as a Colin Kaepernick had, right? Coming out of Utah State. Was that where he came out of? Utah? No, Nevada. My bad. I'm thinking about Jordan Love. But coming out of Nevada, he has that same upside, right? That athletic ability that is very rare, right? Not very many quarterbacks come into the draft at 4.4 speed. He has that. He knows how to use that 4.4 speed. He has a strong arm. The issue is, can he control it? And can you teach him how to control it? If we're taking somebody in the 3rd round and we're trading for Kirk Cousins, we're not looking for a week 1 starter. Will Howard would be the guy you go to if you need somebody to start right away. If you've already got Kirk Cousins trade in the bag and you're trying to develop somebody for a year, I worry that Jalen Milroe is going to take longer to develop than most people think. Not because Jalen Milroe is not going to work hard, but because there's just a lot of work that needs to be done there. It's going to take a lot of time to really crystallize that work in. That's my big concern with him. But if it's coming down to him or Will Howard, I think I'm going to just take Jalen Milroe here. So let's go Jalen Milroe. All right, we're sitting at pick 94. And Kevin Winston's there. I think I'm going to run to the bar. I'm gonna run up and take him. Somebody said Jackson Dart is available. I am not a Jackson Dart fan, unfortunately, for the Jackson Dart fans in the audience. Kevin Winston here at 94 makes a ton of sense, man. Makes a ton of sense. He would have been a first-round pick if he stayed healthy this year. Ignore his 2024 stuff. That 2023 stuff is super strong, right? Pro Football Focus graded it very highly. Now, again, Pro Football Focus grades, they're not the gospel or anything like that, but they are an indicator of how well a player is playing. In his snap alignment, he played mainly free safety. He can do some box action. I think that is a positive for the Browns because they like to interchange their safeties and use them with different looks to try to confuse defenses. I turn in this card here for Kevin Winston, and I'm pretty fine with it. 21-year-old, very good athlete, guy you're getting on a huge discount because he got injured. All right, we're at pick 104, and this is where I start to look at tight ends and running backs. So Jaden Blue's there, very athletic guy. Baishul Tutin's there as well, super athletic. I need more of a three-down guy. I think Trevor would make a ton of sense here. I know Pro Football Focus isn't very high on him, but Trevor, 104, I'd be extremely happy with that. I think he's going to go earlier than Pro Football Focus thinks. Tight end, though, if Harold Fanon's there and Gunnar Helm, I think this is the time to swing on tight end. I could use 108 to get my running back because I'm not really too hard pressed there. So let's go get Harold. Yeah, let's get Harold. He's a younger guy, 20 years old, 6'4", 230. He needs to add some weight, but he's 20. He'll add some weight. Gunnar Helm, a little bit older, 23. And the way I look at this is Harold Fanon Jr., when he was 20, right? So Gunnar Helm's 22.5. So 2 years ago, he was 20.5. Look at Gunnar Helm's stats when he was 20. 44 yards, 5 receptions. Now let's go look at 20-year-old Harold Fanon Jr. stats. 1,500 yards. Much more productive at a much younger age. He needs to bring up some weight. He needs to get a little bit stronger. A willing enough blocker, right? Going to be an awkward fit alongside Njoku, but I think you can make it work. So let's go ahead and get Harold Fanon, and we'll swing around getting running back. Here, I'm more than fine with taking Trevor Etienne right here, but I feel like y'all gonna be mad at me in the chat if I take Trevor Etienne because he's been being sold as a 5th round pick. I think he's a 4th round pick, pretty easy. Let's see if there's anything at wide receiver that moves me. People are really high on Kyle Williams. He does fit that mold of what Andrew Berry likes, super athletic guys who can win versus man. But again, you just got Brandon Aiyuk in this scenario, right? In this perspective scenario, you got Aiyuk. So, yeah, let's piss off the internet and go get Trevor Etienne here at 108. All right, so we're sitting at 143. This is another pick that we got with our extra selections. We're done with quarterback. We could peek at wide receiver here. Kyle Williams still there. I'll probably do that. Let's look around what's available still. Yeah, nothing at tight end making me want to jump here. Well, running back. If Tutin's there at 179, I might do that. But with Kyle Williams still on the board, I'm probably just going to pick Kyle. Yeah, nothing moving me. Nope. Let's click through. Let's be sure. Defensive interior. I'm pretty tapped out on defensive interior. I can't take another D lineman. Linebacker, Kobe King's there. That's not going to move me off Kyle Williams, though. Yeah, let's go Kyle. Very athletic, contested catch, pretty good. Fine drop rate, good grade versus man coverage. Pretty solid at the Senior Bowl. I think that's a player that you draft. Andrew Berry knows, well, Kevin Stefanski knows what to do with a guy like that. We're going to keep our eye on Kobe King. Hopefully he falls to 179. If he doesn't, then we're probably going to take a tight end again or a running back. Yeah, I don't think he fell. I don't think he fell. Let's go to linebacker. Yeah, he didn't fall. All right, tight end or running back. Let's see, tight end here. CJ Dipper, Luke Lachey. That'd be a fine selection there. Running back. I feel like it's going to be more need to take a running back here. All right, so we already got one running back, right? That's Trevor Etienne. What do I feel like compliments? Is it like a Kyle Monangai that feel like compliments him? Yeah, let's go Kyle Monangai. Swing around here. I like CJ. If we're gonna go Jalen, we might as well get him somebody he's familiar with, right? We got two running backs in this draft, y'all. We're good. We're good. All right, yeah, let's go get CJ. Let's go get him somebody he's familiar with. And then we'll fill out the draft with just whatever we get there. We could take a flyer on Jonah as a center. Let's see. Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, LeJontay Wester. I feel fine with taking a flyer on. I want to take Ty here, but Ty's not going to be here. So let's take LeJontay. He's going to be there. And where's my boy? Carson Vincent. Let's take him 254. All right, so that's the scenario, right? Again, in this scenario, we traded for Brandon Aiyuk. We know that if we don't go quarterback within our first two picks, we're going to be able to trade for Kirk Cousins for like a 6 at $10 million a year. And that changes how you would go about doing some of this stuff in the draft. So, I still got 2 running backs, 2 tight ends like I usually do. But let's walk through this draft scenario one more time. I imagine this will be a little controversial. So Abdul Carter, easily take him. I think the big controversial move here is I had a chance to get Luther Burden at 33, but because I went after Brandon Aiyuk, I opted to trade back, pick up extra picks in the 4th and 5th round, and get Darius Alexander. At 37, Darius is a first-round graded defensive interior player. He fills a need there as a run stuffer and as a pass rusher for the Browns. I see a bright future with the 2 Ohio school or college kids, Darius Alexander and Mike Hall in that interior. You got Myles Garrett and you got Abdul Carter, and you got a defensive line that can dominate for years to come as you look for your quarterback answer. Speaking of your quarterback answer, you draft a developmental quarterback here, right? You're picking that 3rd round. You're getting a developmental quarterback. The Browns have Kirk Cousins on the roster, so you don't need somebody to start week 1. Jalen Milroe's the guy I go for in that scenario because I think if you develop him properly, you could get, potentially a Tyrod Taylor to Colin Kaepernick level run from him. The talent is there. The work ethic is there. The question is, how much work is it going to take in order to get him there? I have no doubt he's going to be willing to do it. Just a question of how long is that going to take for it to bear fruit? But you do know at the end of the day, Jalen Milroe can run that ball, right? And you have something that you can get out of that 3rd round pick if Jalen Milroe can run that ball. So it's not going to be a complete waste. Kevin Winston, 94, super young safety. I feel pretty good about that one. Harold Fainin, 104. I'd be doing backflips here. The pick that I think PFF hates the most is Trevor Etienne. I value him in the 4th round, so I'm going to take him in the 4th round. I don't care about PFF's board. Kyle Williams, I think another good pick. I think this is a solid scenario for the Browns. You don't get overwhelmed with offensive talent here. You do most of that right with the Aiyuk trade, and you're hoping Aiyuk and Cousins and that upgrade and what you've done with the offensive line can do most of the heavy lifting with your offense. Also, Trevor Etienne and Kyle Monangai playing a role in there with your run game, hopefully with Nick Chubb still involved, and that this is going to be a team that relies on some offensive input, but a lot of defense, right? Because you got Abdul Carter, you got Darius Alexander. Those are going to be your impact guys week 1. Maybe Kevin Winston gets to that point too, because you got higher expectations for him in the 3rd round than most guys. And then you get some guys you hope can become helpful players on the offense for the rest of the draft, right? Harold Fainin, I think that could develop into a David Njoku replacement. Trevor Etienne in the 4th round, I think he's going to be a really solid player. The question is, how serious are some of the off the field red flags with him? And I think that's why his stock has dropped so significantly, because on the field at the Senior Bowl, he was pretty good. Kyle Williams, again, somebody who had a strong Senior Bowl, good route runner, fits the mold of everything Kevin loves in that offense from that position. And then somebody you could slot in with the 5th round pick. Kyle Monangai, guy you're going to give a chance to be running back 3 on this roster, compete with Pierre Strong. CJ Dipper or Dupree or however you pronounce that, please tell me in the comment section below. You give Jalen Milroe a familiar target, and you try him out as tight end 3. Jonah Mahim, you throw a flyer out there at center, see if he could play center in the NFL. LeJounte Wester, I think he'd be a fun gadget guy in the NFL. You give him, throw a flyer out there, and then Carson Vincent, 254, you throw a flyer out there for a tackle I thought had a very strong Senior Bowl week, and could come into play in the later rounds as a developmental tackle. All in all, I'd feel very good about that. I feel very good about what the Browns accomplished there. Is it going to fix the team overnight? Are the Browns going to be Super Bowl contenders because of this mock draft? No. Right. No one draft is going to do that for you. You're going to have a lot of other things go right, and you're going to have to solve quarterback long term, whether Jalen Milroe's that answer or not. But I think you can tackle a lot of different things in a lot of different spots here to end up with a team that has a really solid future ahead of itself. But that's this mock draft scenario. We could take 1 or 2 questions before I have to head out, if we can do so. Q, do you think signing a quarterback is going to be post-draft at this point? It's looking like it. Because if Russ is really asking for $30 million a year, that market's not going to materialize for him until post-draft. I think a lot of people are going to wait. So I would say it's looking like post-draft for a lot of it, which is scary. Like, nobody wants to be in this situation. Everybody would love to be in a spot where we knew who the starting quarterback was right now. That's the spot we've been in since 2017, but it's just not what we're going to be in now. We might have to wait till after the draft to figure out what the hell is going to go on with quarterback, But yeah, I do think that signing a quarterback's probably post-draft, especially if you're going after Kirk Cousins. It's absolutely going to be after post-draft. We got another question. What the news on Will Levis and Anthony Richardson? Because I wouldn't mind bringing in one of them just in case Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson doesn't work out. I can see the argument for that. Hey, if the Colts want to ship Anthony Richardson for a day 3 pick, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think Anthony Richardson played pretty solid football at the end of last season compared to how he started the season. So, yeah, I would be in on Anthony Richardson. Will Levis, it would make some sense, but I think he's not different enough from Kenny Pickett to make sense for moving to. You know what I mean? Like, Anthony Richardson's a completely different deal than Kenny Pickett. Like, that's somebody you think could start for you this year. Will Levis is a project in the same way that Kenny Pickett is a project where you're like, okay, let's move this guy to my offense, have him do a number of things, right? Just tell him to do a few things and see if that clears things up for him and makes him a better player. So I don't know if Will Levis makes sense, even though like I get the fit. He played in this offense in Kentucky. I just don't think it's 1-to-1 there. I think Anthony Richardson will make a lot more sense. But I don't think they're going to get rid of him just yet. Now, if they want to trade Anthony Richardson at the trade deadline or at the end of camp, I keep my eyes open to that one, right? Especially if it pops up during this year. I keep my eyes and ears open about that whole Anthony Richardson thing because, I don't think the Colts have handled that situation properly at all. And I think there might be something to squeeze out of there if you're willing to squeeze it. What about Joe Milton? I don't feel as strongly about Joe as I do about Anthony Richardson. Look, when it comes to these players who are super uber physically talented, right, that have all the physical gifts in the world, I really care about age. And that is the problem with Joe Milton, right? Anthony Richardson, let's look it up right now. Anthony Richardson is still, I believe, 22 years old. He will be 23 by the time that this season kicks off. That is the same age that Cam Ward is. And he's already got 2 NFL seasons under his belt, right? So super young player in Anthony Richardson. If you're spending a 4th-round pick, I'm willing to see what it is with him, right? Joe Milton, on the other hand, is a bit older. He's 25. The reason I say this is because if Joe Milton were able to be developed and fixed, I think he would have done it before he turned 25. You look at Pat Mahomes at 25, he was already Pat Mahomes. You look at Josh Allen at 25, he was already Josh Allen, right? You don't develop this late. And that's the concern that I have with trading for Joe is, one, you had an opportunity to take him last year. You didn't want to take him. So that says like something in his scouting profile you didn't love. And 2, 25-year-old, like, yeah, he played well against the Bills backups, but you expect him. He's 25 years old. He should be better than most of those players that are playing at that portion of the game or in the preseason. He should look better than Drake May, who was 20 years old, right, when he entered the league, or 21. Super young. He's 25. So, yeah, I'm just not really big into the potential for a player that has aged out of being talked about in potential terms, right? Like, he's 25. That's the big issue with him, right? Anthony Richardson at 22, I'll play the potential game with you, especially if you've shown some sparks on the field. But at 25, I don't love playing the potential game with the 25-year-old. But that's all my time I have here. I want to thank everybody for watching Quincy Carrier Live. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.